let's look at finding the standard deviation in Excel. Now we're going to find it two different ways. The first way is going to be the mimicking our by hand method, so what we used here with this table that we were using to calculate by hand. So we'll mimic that in Excel. And then the second way will be to use Excel's function for finding standard deviation, and we'll use that to double check our by hand method, and we'll call that the by Excel method. So there you are. I've got two columns in this chart that I was using by hand, and so I want to mimic that. I'm going to leave a column free for titles, and then I'll start here in the column B, so I'll call that X's. And then in column C, I'm just tabbing over and typing, and then I'll call this X squared. So I'm doing caret 2, and it's right above this 6, and that gives me the caret character. So caret 2 and then apostrophe S. So there's my X's, my X squareds. Let's just type in our data. I circled it already over here. So there's the data that I'm starting with. So I have -1, 1, 2, 5, 10, and 50. So there's all my data. All I've done now is typed in 2 column headings and typed in my data. I am going to jump down here. I will need to know how many data items I have, so I'll need an N. And then we can see from our function, we did this in our head, but we want Excel to calculate for us, so we're going to type that in as well. So it'll be N minus 1, and that'll give me the 5 that I had for this one, and when I get it calculated. And then I'll put in the rest of my calculations for the standard deviation. So first thing I need to do is the square of each of these data items here. So the first one, I'll just start off, go to the right and just type equals to tell Excel that we want to calculate something. Click on the data value, and then it's showing B2 in my cell. That's great. And then use the caret 2. So the caret, remember, is right above the 6, and then just the number 2, and push enter. Well, we did expect the square of -1 to be a +1 because we worked that out and we can see that matches. So what I'll do is click on that cell, go to the bottom right of it, and then drag it down. And what it's going to do for me is square everything that is in the previous column. And I can see that it works out 114, 25, 100, and 2500. So 114, 25, 100, and 2500. So that list of squareds worked out exactly right, and I only had to type my formula once and then just go to the bottom right of the selected area and look for the little black plus, and then push and drag, push down on my mouse button and drag it down to get it to pull that formula to all the other cells. So that's really nice. Now I do need a couple more rows, so I'm going to right click. First I clicked on the number 9, and then I right click and then insert. It's going to drop it down a little bit. I'll drop it down maybe one more from there. So I have 1, 2, 3 blank rows after my table of values, and now I need to put in some titles. The first one is going to be the sum of the x's. So I'll just write sum of x's, and then this right hand side is going to be the sum of x squareds, and then I'll have the sum of x's squared, or you could say sum of the squareds. Okay, I do want to widen my column just a bit so I can see the title. So remember, I'm going in between A and B and double clicking, and it'll widen it for me. The sum of the x's, I just need to make the sum of this, and I can see that my summation button is available. So I'll go to the -1, the first data item, push Control Shift down arrow, and it selects all my data, and then I'll just push that summation, and it's giving me that 67. If you want to type that by hand, if you can't find that button, it's equals sum, left parenthesis, and I'll show you on this next one, and then you put the interval of data that you want to sum, and then right parenthesis. So doing it by hand, here's how it looks. Equals SUM, and you can see it's bringing up things to help me out. Left parentheses, go to the start of your data, click on it, and then I can do Control Shift down from here, and then right parenthesis and enter. And there it's telling me 2631, which is definitely what I got by hand as well. Last thing is I have to square that 67. Remember, that was our squared sum. Maybe we'll just make that match, squared sum. And then that would be equals, because I want to have Excel calculate that for me. So I'll click on the 67 and then to the second. So I'm using the caret again for the to the, and then just typing the number 2, and I get 4489, and there it is, 4489 from my original, so I know I got that correct. I want to find n, how many data items I have, and remember to do that I'm just looking at equals count left parenthesis, and then I push and hold on the first data item. I'm holding down my button, and then slide down to the last data item and then let go. That's the other way I could put interval in. And then right parenthesis and push enter, and it said 6. We thought n was 6 over here as well, so we're doing great. And then I need n minus 1, so equals, click on the n, and then minus 1, enter, and I've got 5 for the n minus 1. And that makes sense too, that's what we had for our denominator. Now we're down to using our formula. So our formula is over here, and we have our example of it worked out here in case we get stuck. But remember, first we're going to work underneath the square root on the numerator, and we're going to do this little divide right here. So I'm going to call it a silly name so we remember where it came from and what part we have done. And so this one will be the little divide. And to do the little divide, I need the sum of the x's squared. So the sum of the x squared, no, the squared sum, that's it, the sum of the x's and then squared. So it's this one right here. So I'm going to say equals to tell Excel I want to calculate, click on the 4489, and then it looks like I need to divide by n. So I'll just put the slash in there to do the divide, and then click on the cell that has my n in it, the 6, and then push enter. I get 748.1667, and when I come over here, it looks like it's right there. That's the result of the little divide. We're doing great. Next thing, so I have this piece done. Now I need to do this subtraction on the numerator, so subtract. And to do that, I'll say equals, and I have to take the sum of the x squareds. So this is the sum of the x squareds here, so I'll click that, and then I have to subtract the result of my little divide there. So I'll just click right on the cell where I did that calculation a second ago, and then push enter. So this is 1882.83. I did have a typo here that has a 1182, and it should be 1882. We'll double check ourselves on the next step. So I did the subtraction for the numerator, so I've taken care of all of that. You can see it here, I've taken care of all of that. And the next thing I have to do is divide by 5. So that's going to be the big divide. And to do that, I'll say equals, and I click on the numerator, which is my 1882, and then put the slash for divide, and then click on that n minus 1, or the 5, and then push enter, and I get 376.56 repeating, and that's what I had right here under the radical, so I know this for sure was a typo. And then next and last step is to take the square root. So I will do square root, and that's going to be equals. And now Excel has a function for us, SQRT. It sounds kind of like square root. Put the left parenthesis and then click on what you want to take the square root of, right parenthesis, and push enter. And you can see I get the 19.4053. And it gave me one extra decimal, so if I wanted to, I could select all of those data items and tell them I want them all to have, this is just going to decrease, that'll work like that. So they all have 4 decimal places now. And so I have 19.4053, which matches exactly. Now I did promise you that I was going to show you 2 ways. The first way was the by hand method, so maybe instead of the square root I might write by hand standard deviation, And then the last thing I want to do is by Excel standard deviation. And to do that one, we just say equals, and then STDEV is the function for standard STD, and then EV is shared, so shares that D in the middle is what I meant. So equals standard deviation, and then I need to just select the data item. So remember, click on the first one, click and hold down your mouse on the first one, and then drag down to the last data item. And the other option, you could just type in that V2 through colon V7. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter if you type it or drag to select. It doesn't matter a bit. Put the right parenthesis and then push enter. Now these two should match exactly. And I can see that I did change the number of decimals showing on that one above, and so I need to do it on the one below as well. And so I have 19.4053 for both of them. If I don't get the exact same value for both of them, it means I made a mistake, either in selecting the range of values I was going to use here, or somewhere along the line in my calculations. And so I need to be a bit of a detective and go back through and see if I can figure out what I messed up on. And you can use this formula to help you go through each little piece and make sure that you did the parts correctly.